to approve the minutes of November.
Second.
Second. Any? Okay, all in favor? Opposed, abstention. We've got 3 abstentions. Okay. So moved.
I'd like to compliment Chris again on an excellent job. We have to encourage him, keep it up.
Good morning, Honor. Good morning, Pam.
Morning.
Morning.
Honor is our representative from the Trust for Public Land. And Pamela Adam is a representative from the Friends of State Parks. Do you have anybody else on Zoom?
You have Millie Ramsey.
Hi, Millie.
Millie just joined.
Okay. Okay, well, so that we don't hold up our guests any longer, we're going to skip down to new business. And Paul, would you like to introduce speaker?
Sure. Well, David Buckley is the Connecticut Park Supervisor for our area. It was Pam who suggested that we get together immediately with him to coordinate the next moves and an overview of the new acquisition of Moss Pond State Park. So whatever you brought to the table.
Well, we probably have everything. I mean, the state just recently picked up 2 new pieces in Signa property and the Telstrom property to add to the Mono Pond State Park Reserve. Right now, I was just talking to Ian. The stewardship agreement between the town, because there was money used between the town and state, hasn't been signed. Pretty sure you've probably seen that agreement. It was the same, basically the same one with Mono Pond. That state's town's responsibilities, state's responsibilities. So at this point, they were looking into Hartford. I believe the woman who was handling all that no longer works for the department. So they're just trying to see how it was left. So the maps were given to me. We really don't have any management plan in place for it. The first thing we need to go out is mark the boundaries. So nothing can be done until we understand exactly where the boundaries are. We did go out and GPS all the trails, all the structures and whatever else is out there. So at least we have a sort of a basic plan of what's out there. And it does, obviously, a big chunk of it borders right up onto the airline trail. Fortunately, in that area, there's a lot of illegal use. There's a lot of off-road ATV dumping. There's quite a bit of stuff that shouldn't be going on in that area. So I'm not sure what our management plan is going to be for there. I know you had talked about putting in trails.
Yeah.
So I mean, certainly the state's more than open to do that. That was one of the reasons, you know, that the property was built, was bought. So there are a lot of trails, more so in the Telstrom property, that there's nothing authorized at this point. So we'd be looking, if open space or the town was looking to put in a trail system, we have a whole trail policy that we would need to go through, you know, start the process of what we want, and then try to close or eradicate, you know, any illegal trail, ATV trail, 4-wheel drive trail. which may involve blocking off areas where they're getting in and things like that. So we're at the very beginning. Hopefully over this winter, we are going to get the boundaries marked, and then we can move on from there. So that's where we are now.
It's good. Let's see, how recent has the state been out there to look at the trails?
I've been out there off and on, looked over the past spring. I'm not real familiar with it. Let's see, all the trails were GPSed in September of last year, 2020. So he actually goes out, so that's our trail. So he's got everything that is a trail, he walks and puts it on a map. So that's the Shellstrom property. So there's quite a bit of, as you can see, there's quite a bit of trails back in there. The other piece of property just has a few trails that he found. So once again, so the GPS maps are fairly updated within the year.
Okay.
Any way you could email those to us?
Yeah.
Here, artist reach.
If you just make it simple, email that to, what is that, your?
Town admin, right,
Okay.
Okay.
Town
And I'll
admin,
get it to you guys.
and
And
Mark
Paula.
will
Yeah.
send it to the rest of us.
So I have talked to the forester and wildlife biologists for the area. So they are also very interested in any sort of management plan. Because the property is going to be open for hunting. Unfortunately, I think at one point, this new parcel was posted on our website as open to archery season. Technically it is, but nothing's marked. So law enforcement already had some issues and questions. So that should have been pulled off of the website. We don't want to post it as this property is state-owned and open for hunting until we know exactly where our boundaries are.
So that was a question, if I couldn't, the residents that walk in there, because this is new, they've been parking on dead ends of Columbia's neighborhoods,
Yep.
Island Woods to be specific, and they're hiking in to hunt, and it's concerning the residents, and they know, we know we're on land that's archery allowable. So Ian and I have been communicating that we're still in the process of, with the new acquisitions, bringing them on board, but that's still gray area. So we've been telling them, you have to be careful where you hunt.
Exactly,
It's not all open for bow, and some of it's still privately owned by the town.
Right, yeah, your property's all, joined in, so for anything, obviously the town would have to give permission for hunting, but we would still have to get everything marked for state property and come up with wildlife. I don't think it's really sat down and gone over the whole hunting protocol and what's going to be allowed, what's not going to be allowed. They're assuming it's just going to still be the archery season, archery only. We'll just continue that.
Good.
One of the problems is that prior to acquisition, this large parcel was, and some places still is, privately owned.
Mhm.
And it was the private owners would issue, landowner permits to hunters. So there's been rifle, shotgun, bow, everything out there. And so it's going to take some work to
Yeah.
bring all
Yep.
of that in. Same thing with the ATV abuse. Some of the peripheral owners have actually allowed, encouraged, and given access to ATVers. And then they go from that landowner's property to the rest of it. And as you said, it made a terrible mess.
Yes, yeah.
You'll find some signs in there that we put up back before the state purchased those properties. We're trying to stop the ATVs, and you'll see some signs, no ATVs allowed.
Yeah.
Those are ours.
Okay, yeah.
And then if you want to change them to an official no ATV sign that you use, or what's allowed, horse walking, no motorized vehicles, we can help you with that.
Okay, yeah, definitely. Like I said, it's all in the beginning stages. Law enforcement is actually very interested in the area because they're getting calls, so sometimes they're not quite sure what's private, what's town, what's state.
And we'd be very happy to work with them, go
Yeah.
out there with them, whatever is necessary.
Okay. And I know, I think you're interested in some sort of a better public access. That would be part of the plan, whether we have a small parking lot at the end of this road or pull off over here to get people away from the neighborhoods where they're just pulling off on the sides of the road, especially if there's hunting.
Right.
People get really sometimes intimidated, when they see someone even with a bow and arrow or in full camo or whatever, getting out of their vehicle on the sides of the road. So,
Yes, parking and access is
yes.
a big issue. I mean, there are 50 ways to get in there, but
Yes,
none of
yeah,
them are
yeah.
good.
But there's actually some, typically, and yes, when we get to where the airline trail, there's quite a bit of illegal use on that spur piece of property that now goes right onto the Kellstrom property. But when you get back in there, there's quite a lot of architectural details on the old railroads with the brownstone culverts, massive culverts underneath. So there's a lot of interesting areas that, a lot of people would be really interested in coming out to look. So when you stand down and see the tunnels or brownstone culverts, that stretch for 50, 60 feet, under these massive embankments, it's kind of impressive.
It is.
And just to be clear, this is Rob Elton who surveyed all that in there.
Okay.
So your name must have been on the survey map.
It's on the maps, yeah.
Yeah, no,
You're calling it the help.
the Tom Nalvo does all our GPS, and he had mentioned your name, because he had sent some survey notes out, to me, which, I'm not a surveyor, so I'm like, okay, I can look it up, but it's not making a lot of sense to me, but.
I'll be interested in seeing the GPS stuff that you have, because I'm working actually trying to do a map of everything, so I'd be kind of neat to put that on.
Okay. Yeah, and I can always give your contact to Tom. I mean, he does all the, he'll put something out to me, but I'm sure he has some better files, that you may be interested in. Unfortunately, he's retiring in like 2 months, so we're gonna lose a lot of that knowledge.
Does anybody gonna work there anymore?
Yeah, by July, is it gonna be just a ghost town?
Well, that's what I'm wondering, but the lights are still on, so.
All I hear is everybody's leaving by July 1 to lock in their
Yeah.
benefits. If they can retire.
Yeah.
Rob, what should I forward? Is it still the same email you're still using? ROBLS44?
Yes.
Okay. David, do you have contact information you want me to use?
Yeah, I don't have a card with me, but I can just give you it's David.Buckley.
David.
Buckley @ct.gov.
Okay, so I'll forward you, Rob, and my information. You have mine.
Yep.
And then we'll be able to communicate. Great.
Mark, this is, can I say something? This is Honor.
Sure.
Did you happen to have that meeting with the board where they were going to sort of request TPL's assistance in the master trails plan and working with the town and the state?
The Board of Selectmen did sign off on the letter.
Great.
with our support towards TPL and the master plan and working with the state and the International Bike Association to create a master plan. So I'll make sure Jen sends that to you today.
Great. So Dave, I'm Honor from TPL, and we've been working with Columbia for a couple years, helping them acquire properties, and now as the focus is sort of shifting to mapping out the trails and making sure there's adequate public access, and people aren't parking on dead end roads and things like that. We're exploring a relationship with the International Mountain Biking Association and possibly the local chapter, which would be NEMBA, to come up with a master trails plan. And I know that, as you said, there's a state trails policy and we have to follow that. And so I put together a proposal for creating that master trails plan. And, we'll have to raise some money to put it together and to pay IMBA to do it. But I know that, we don't want to pay for something that the state isn't authorizing or whatnot. And so maybe it would make sense for whomever the appropriate person is at the state to have a meeting with TPL and, a representative from the town and IMBA to just put our heads together and see what the process is. And so we can get going on that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that could actually start with me. I mean, we do have the trail policy, so any trails have to go through us, and then there's a review of everyone. So, I would look for just a preliminary plan of what you're looking for, where you're looking for. What I don't want to see is take the GPS map, because some organizations are sort of famous for GPS and all the state property and every trail on it. They hand it in to me and say, this is what we want, when they don't actually get out there and see exactly what's out there. Well, when we do a trail policy, we're looking for sustainable, environmentally sound trails with all user groups. So we don't want a lot of redundant trails. Wildlife has big concerns about how many trails are in an area. Forestry has a concern, although I don't think there's really going to be any forest management plans in this area. But they also definitely have a concern. And fisheries has a concern whenever we get near any streams or crossings like that. So sometimes it gets to be an involved process, but we can certainly start, with just preliminary plan of what you're looking for and what sort of trail. Obviously it's going to be all multi-use trail. But if you were looking for anything more, along the airline trail, something like that, there's going to be a lot of discussion on it.
Yeah, the trails that exist there now are old town roads and some, illicit ATV trails and some unsanctioned sort of, trails that have just been made over time. And what we've talked to IMBA about and to the town about last meeting was, when IMBA gets involved and they're paid to do a full trail analysis, they really do a deep dive into where does it make the most sense to have the trails? Where is it most interesting to, topographically and ecologically, and they are really premier trail planners in this, in the country. They don't do a ton of work in Connecticut, but they have some really good case studies that, they've done trail planning for, Maryland DNR and in Georgia and, all over the place that they've sent us some examples that it looks amazing. They're very conscientious about making sure that, if they're building trails or planning trails for mountain bike users, that those are sensitive to the ecology, to streams, to wetlands. They're going, they're even listed in DEEP's trail policy as really sort of, one of the resources you should look to when you're looking to design new trails or plan new trails. And so we would, of course, be very cognizant of all those things. And what I'm wondering is, can we have some deep DEP blessing to go forth in creating this plan that will look at all those things and, take the DEP's trail policy and wildlife policy and all those things and incorporate it into, a plan that would then go to the DEP for review. And, perhaps there's some working along the way, but we want to get going on that so that, we're not, we use the momentum of buying the land to then, get to this next step. I mean, I think this is an interesting property where you could have some, possibly multi-use trails, possibly some mountain bike trails. Whether those are part of that multi-use or not is sort of up in the air, but that's, I think that having a meeting with the appropriate person at DEP, whether it's you or, the commissioner or whatever, would be helpful to us to understand, we don't want to pay for something that's going to be useless. We want to pay for something that's going to be useful to the DEP and the town and residents and visitors and all those folks.
Yeah, I mean, it would start with me and
Okay.
our sales person, Lori Giannotti,
Yep.
handles all the trail stuff. Unfortunately, she's also retiring soon.
Not Lori. Oh, no.
I'm sure, that position will be filled, but definitely, I would say, start the process and, we can sit down and just make sure, we're both looking at the same thing.
Great.
Obviously, the state's not going to give permission to actually do anything until it goes through our whole review process.
Okay. So just getting a handle on what that looks like would be helpful to us.
The trail policy, is that available? That you can send that?
I
to
can
me?
send that to you. I have a copy
Good,
here.
I'll get it to you, Honor.
I have it. I have put together a proposal based on the trail policy, and I sent it to Matt Starr, and he had said, maybe it was Mason that was the right person, but I think, Dave, it sounds like let's start with you and see where it goes.
Yeah, Matt has been working with wildlife. He's the one who's doing some research on the background of the purchasing and some of the paperwork, so.
Great.
Does anyone have more questions?
Well, I'm always the one that asks, what's the very next step?
Well, for us, the next step is we have to get out and physically mark the boundaries.
Okay, and that would be done this winter, you think?
Hopefully, yeah. Yeah, but, and Pam, we're, even when you were director, we were not full staffed, and unfortunately, we just keep getting lower and lower numbers, but the plan right now is I already talked to Forestry and Wildlife and Parks, and the plan is we will get out there this winter. I believe all the corners are marked and there's pins and everything. We just gotta sort of tie in everything together. So that is the plan, yeah.
So you'll find when you're in there, 2 of the properties we still own that we probably eventually would like to roll over to the state. And whether that's in kind towards future purchases, I don't know how we'll negotiate that with Trust Public Land in the state. But you'll see, we've already marked those 2 properties. Rob and I.
Okay.
So you'll see our medallions on the tree.
Yep. And so we'll just be marking our side as state property, and then if there's some sort of agreement or becomes one, then we take care of that.
Good, yeah, one's Mint Brook and what we call the other one. I don't know if we named the other little triangle,
No, we haven't.
but Mint Brook is the real pretty one that has the nice wetlands and.
Old foundations and pond.
Right.
Right. The other issue I wanted to bring up was the historic value of this project. And I'm not sure that the state understands that, because the original Mata Pond did not have, was not part of the 18th century village. And so there are foundations and wells out there. There are wells, they usually don't need water in them, but they're not covered. Some of them are on the original, 1 and 2, but the newer portions have more of these foundations. And our historical society is very anxious that those are not.
Yeah, we'd have to go out and actually see what's out there, but,
And we have maps. This is a map of where they are. They're highlighted. So they.
yeah, there's always some sort of interpretive side, if we were gonna have some trails,
Mhm.
depending on funding once again for any sort of signage.
And our historical society could do that
Yep.
for you if you wish. But they were hoping that we would not put a mountain biking trail.
Well, no, that's the whole thing of the trail reveal.
Right.
We don't want them going through, historic areas or even, stone walls, we don't want them knocking a hole in the wall to put a trail through. We want them to go.
Too late.
Well, yeah, unfortunately, that's sort of the common occurrence, but,
And
There's that type of damage back there right now with people taking stone walls apart to make a quad trail or whatever.
yeah, I can't say for sure, because I'm not that familiar with it, but, based on other areas, that's what happens. But even if there's just an old wall, running through the woods, if someone wants to put a trail, we usually don't, the best point is from point A to B, and they just want to punch a hole through that wall. We're not going to allow that because that wall does have some sort of historic significance. So we would want the trail to find where's the original barway
Right.
opening and utilize that.
Mhm.
So the state would definitely be cognizant of any historic thing that, that we want to preserve.
The other place that I would like to put on the management plan, I don't know how soon this could happen or where the funding would come from, but I would like to get it in the management plan so that it might happen. And that is a bridge in the power line. There's near the east side, there's a dip down, and it's actually a marshy area. It's not a running stream that would flood with any raging force. The water would rise. But to get from the very nice parking lot that we already have on Hunt Road
At Mono Pond.
at the original monopod, the boat launch, to get from that parking lot to the rest of the park would require a bridge. A footbridge.
Through the wetlands.
I mean, we've done that before, once again, everyone would have to review and.
I understand
I
that,
can't tell you one way
bridges-
or the other.
bridges don't happen overnight. even
No,
in
and
Boy
what we're
Scouts.
looking at, the old days of throwing some boards down and, traversing a wetland are sort of gone.
I know, I know,
We can't
and
do that
it's,
anymore.
and it's costly now because you gotta have the marsh feed.
Yeah, but we have bridges, everywhere, footbridges and boardwalks. It just takes time and money, unfortunately.
But it is this trail that was our initial focus, that to get from the parking lot to the airline trail,
Mhm.
because that would open up everything.
Yeah.
That's probably the most important thing.
Yeah, well, if you can note that, if I send it, note that, so I can at least go out there, so I know what exactly you're looking at. So when we have a discussion, you know, we can start from there.
Rob, could you help us, like, actually give our thoughts on the survey map
I can take a look at it.
of where it makes the most sense, and then you guys can actually see our vision, and maybe
Right.
it could become part of the master plan.
Right, and that's what we usually ask, that any user group, you come to us with your proposal and we'll take a look, as
Okay.
opposed to, we don't necessarily go out to give you a proposal. It's just, there's just too much property and that's just too broad base for us to do that.
Sure. We can do that.
Mark, and that, you know, that's one of the priorities that I incorporated into the proposal for a trail master plan, is access from, you know, the existing parking lot to the, you know, 400 acres that we just bought. Is like, you know, getting across that is obviously a priority. And so if we were to be able to do this master plan, that would be, you know, part of that exploratory planning process, is finding where's the most appropriate spot, least ecological impacts, you know, all of that. And so I think that Mark, you and Ann and whomever else should take a look at this proposal, and we can put our heads together and make sure we capture everything before we send it to the DEP. But I think that's all part of the same package.
But can you get that to me, Honor? And I just asked Jen to send you our support letter. So looks like we'll be communicating a lot today.
Great.
And then get all of that to.
To David, yeah.
And
Well, we might have more progress than we realized. Good.
as long as we do it all before 9/10 of deep retirement.
Or Dave.
Yeah. The other thing is, if everyone retired, you just do what you want. But you didn't hear it from me.
Big question, Dave, when do you retire?
I'm gonna be around for a little while.
Okay.
That's good. Okay. Does anyone else have comments, questions?
Yeah, I have a question. I can't, I don't know. I was just wondering if there has been any progress made on setting up a Friends organization yet?
I contacted Eric Hammerling, and I had a chat with him, and he said, no, he was too busy to be on the board. But he said he'd be happy to hear from us and work with us. But
And who's Eric Hamlin?
and he is the executive director of Connecticut Forest and Parks Association.
Okay.
Well, you don't really need Eric to start your paperwork to establish your Friends organization. And I'm guessing that the Friends organization is going to be the fundraising arm of this project, at least for the initial start. But you really, the paperwork is going to take some time to do, and you really are going to need to design your mission statement, before you can fill that out. And so I just was wondering if any, have you established a committee, and, if yes, where are they in taking those first steps?
We start with one lawyer. If we strike out the second,
Haven't approached.
we're looking for a lawyer to help us with the paperwork. And
Okay.
pro bono.
A lot of that you can do on your own without the assistance of an attorney. I mean, there are a few areas that you might want some, to confer with an attorney, but most groups handle it themselves because obviously it's more cost effective, and they have a lot more control over how the the verbiage goes.
Yeah.
Millie had said that, that historian, Ingrid had done that for the Historical Society and that she might be able to assist.
Okay. Well, okay, the short answer to your question is, no, we haven't.
So maybe you should be on board for our next meeting.
Well, I think Tim has given us the tools we need. We just need to sit down and do this.
You should have a committee established, a group that's going to shepherd this the formation of a friends group forward and stick with it for a while to make sure your management plans and the fundraising for that are all implemented.
Okay, we'll get on it.
I nominate Paul.
Yeah.
Well, what we need is a rabble rousel that will chair the thing, you know.
That's you.
No, somebody from the community. I thought Linda was a good source.
Whatever. We'll work on it. Paul
Okay.
spoke like this, and then he says, no.
But when that group actually gets together, right, David, they'll probably want to meet with you as they put together a mission statement to see what you see the needs of the park being and what kind of things you would like to see in that mission statement that the Friends Committee could then advance. They're meeting, be in touch with you when that happens. Yeah.
Are there any big friends groups in this area?
No, actually, I manage the Salmon River Management Unit, which Gay City, Dave Pond, Herb, Rashawn, Nathan Hale, the Hop River, and the Airline Trail. And there are no friends groups in any of those areas.
So I used to run East Haddam, and so the big friends groups were Gillette's Castle and Devil's Hop Yard.
Yes, and I think Macamudas or Sunrise.
Yes, in Macamudas, we started when I
Yeah,
was there.
yeah,
So those are big, successful parks now. And we're doing a lot.
You also have the Friends of Mansfield Hollow. That's a very active group, and they're very big into trails and trail development. So that might be a group that you need to touch base with. Devil's Hop Yard, as far as I know, is defunct as a friends group, but Gillette and Macamudas certainly are very active groups.
Yeah, actually, a lot of the key members were all part of my Boy Scout troop. We do a lot of Eagle Scout projects in those parks. And we used to work a lot with Phil Uris.
Oh, yeah.
He was part of our troop
Yep.
with his daughter.
Okay.
So real good connection that we established over the years.
Okay. Any other questions?
But you're right, for a friends group to survive, you need some really energetic members that
Yes. we
love to get together and work on projects.
Oh, I had a somewhat unrelated question. What is the state's opinion about naming things? Like, if there was a major donor for, say, the trail, say this first trail from the parking lot to the airline trail, could it in fact be named like the John Smith Trail? Just, I mean,
I would have to check. I know there's a policy, and Pam might know even from back when she was the director. There is a specific policy on naming things, donations, plaques, things along that line. So, I don't really have the answer for you at this point.
Yeah. As far as I can remember, the preference is to name a property after a major natural feature or historic feature on the property rather than name a park after a specific person. I mean, there is some precedent for doing that, but it was many years ago that all of the newer properties acquired by the state are usually named after a natural feature on the property. But, I haven't, I've been out of the game now for about 12 years, so policies may have changed.
I think that's still the same, but we did have that discussion when the state acquired Lake Williams. There was a request to maybe have a specific name on that parcel. And it was denied, because like you said, more geographical or historical significance.
Well, do you think a trail would fall into that?
It's hard to say,
Sure.
you know, that would be up at the Hartford level.
I mean, maybe, what about their name on the, I mean, it might be something where you could put a little plaque on the bridge that says, you know, generously donated by the X family. I mean, as, you know, but I would suspect that would be okay, right?
Yeah, you can name things within the park after somebody,
Yeah.
and that's been done before. But the park as a whole is usually a geographic or natural feature.
I think I remember Graham Stevens saying you have to donate it if you want your name on it. If we're buying land, we're not naming it after you. Sorry. And you know, we run into this too. People that we buy land from want their park named after them, and it's like, yeah.
Well, that was a big argument at Lake Williams, because they wanted to name it after the person who sold it to the state.
Right.
And they're like, no, well, we paid a lot of money for it, so.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like the Friends group and possibly this like trail proposal would go really well hand in hand, because we're generating support and building the community element through creating this Friends group and getting it set up. It gives us, you know, a way to reach out to people. It gives it some, you know, sort of, not to say it doesn't have dignity now, but it holds sort of having a Friends group is definitely, I would say, a good thing when it comes to, you know, partnership building, fundraising, and things like that. So I would suggest, like, if you guys can handle it and find someone to lead it, like, get that going. And then we will simultaneously get the proposal and meet with Mark and Ann and, you know, anyone else that wants to be a part of looking at this proposal for a master trails plan. Get it in front of Deep. And that's all I got.
I have a question as a newcomer in the group, on the committee. I don't know the significance of the history of this place, the property. Would that be a time now to maybe go over that, or should I do something like that after? Fill me in later?
I'll fill you in.
Sounds good.
Okay. Yeah, because I will
Anyways,
orient.
Yeah, I'd
you,
like to sit down with you for an hour and just, yeah, 'cause
Oh,
I got a lot of notes.
And I'll tell you. when.
You'll need more than an hour.
Yeah, but I just told them it would be an hour to suck them in.
no, we already know.
There's a lot of information within.
Yeah,
Bring in Joan too.
oh,
And you'll need even.
no,
way more
you'll need
than
a week,
an hour.
yeah. Okay. So, anything else? No? Okay. Thank you very much.
All right, no, it was my pleasure.
Yep.
It's nice to see, yeah, it's nice to see this
Yes,
involvement.
me too, I'm sure.
Looking forward to getting a little more better management plan, and getting the boundaries marked. And we found that when people get involved in our properties and take ownership, the illegal use sort of subsides. So
Right.
it's not a free for all out there anymore. So
It's always good to have a lot of eyes with special interests in there, whether it's the bow hunters or the cyclists or the hikers, they'll communicate and tell us who's the bad guys and where the access points are.
Yep. Yep, and once we get some established trails, it does tend to stop the illegal ATV use.
Right, and then when we visit their home,
Yeah.
explain to their parents that this isn't allowed, and
Yeah.
strike one, you're okay, but strike two, it's not gonna be good.
Yeah,
So would you get back to us when you get this area marked and everything? And then-
Yes, yeah, I'll
Then
let
we
you
could
know.
we could get together a meeting after that.
Yep, and I'll send out the GPS maps, so you can take a look and see what our people have done.
Wonderful,
and we'll go from there.
Good,
Yeah.
great.
great.
Is that, all right, well, thank you.
Thank
Nice to
you.
meet everyone.
Thanks, Dave.
Very nice to meet you.
Take care.
And thank you so much for coming at this ungodly hour.
No, it's nice. I actually enjoy the early morning meetings.
Good.
Rest of the day is free. A little while. All right, take care.
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you. Okay, so I would like to formally introduce everyone to our two new members, Justin Rendu.
Correct, yeah. Riendo, close enough, I get Twitter all the time.
Well, how would you like it pronounced?
Riendo,
Riendo.
yeah.
Okay, and Paul Zader. And Justin, would you like to start and tell us a little bit about you?
Sure. My wife and I and two boys moved to Columbia in 2017. I grew up in Tolland. Went to school in Ohio, we did a lot of traveling, and then kind of moved back to this area. My parents still live in the area, my brother, so we had some family that brought us back. Just have a general interest in land use, been in agriculture most of my life, and started getting involved last year on different issues and stuff. So just here more to listen than to say anything. So I'm soaking it in like a sponge. I'm sure I'll have a lot of questions for you as we go along. And I'm also on planning and zoning, so I've dealt a little bit with obviously land use, but open space issues on that as well. So just here to learn and listen. So thanks for having me.
Good.
Hey, Justin, can I have your contact information so I can send you the minutes after the meetings?
Sure. Yeah. You want my email?
Yes, please.
It's Justin, Justin, RIENDEAU @outlook.com.
Outlook.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
And Paul.
I've been in town almost going on 30 years now. My wife and I own a small business, a daycare. I have a management background in restaurants. I tell everyone I did my 25. It's a tough business, but it was basically mostly management. I did about 9 years of beverage sales after that, and then decided to call the corporate stuff goodbye, said goodbye, and we've been doing a daycare ever since. Very successful in town, and we've raised a lot of kids, helped raise a lot of kids. Between the two of us, I had 2 boys and she had 2 boys and a girl, so we raised 5 kids. Decided not to have our own because of their age and the merge and all that. So and my oldest is special needs, and he's here in town in Mosaic down at the bottom of the hill. In a group home, he does very well. And let's see. As far as being on the committee, I have open space behind me where I live on 87. It's behind the property behind the firehouse and Zedka Road.
Okay, Zedka Farm.
Yeah, Zedka Farm. There's some nice trails back there that I explore with the kids for teaching outdoor stuff, which is great. I'm glad it's there. I could do a little bit on my property, but we step off a little bit just to show them trees and things like that. So it's more of a learning thing. So I like to, part of that is that interest in preserving space like that for other people to use and things like that. So this is a big project with the state, and it's very, very interesting. So what else?
Your email.
Email, PF as in Frank, Zator, ZATOR, @gmail.com.
Super.
Oh, I am a hunter too, and metal detectives, couple of hobbies.
Great.
So when I hear historic properties and stuff, I'm like, oh, that's nice.
Just remember the permission to build the town.
Yes,
She did.
no,
Watch out, Joe, no.
well, that's the thing.
Joe
that's-
Hill.
I- Yeah, I'm not one of those guys that digs a hole and walks away.
Good.
Definitely interested in the age and the history of properties, and
Right.
very respectful.
Great.
But I won't do it without permission, of course.
Okay, well, welcome.
Yep.
Honor,
Yeah.
do you have anything we need to do in executive session?
I don't think so. No developments worth noting, really. Still talking to folks, on possible building out Mono Pond, as we've discussed in past executive sessions, but things are still in the negotiation phase. So,
Okay,
yeah, and I just wanted to stay on just to meet your new members. Hi, I'm Honor. I'm from the Trust for Public Land. I've been working with the committee here for a couple of years now, and it's nice to see new faces. So,
We're happy to be here. Well, I'm happy to be
I
here.
am
I'm
too.
not Justin.
Nice to meet you. I'm happy to be here.
Well, the Trust for Public Land has been absolutely instrumental in what we've been able to accomplish with the state. You can see how the state is underfunded, understaffed.
Yeah.
Like
And
molasses.
but they Honor managed to pull it together, and we've purchased over 400 acres to add to Mono State. And
Yeah.
we still have a lot more that we want to add, and this could be one of the, I think the long-term objective is to have one of the nicest state parks, in Connecticut.
Yeah.
And I mean, because it's so varied. I mean, you've heard things like historical and foundations and wetlands and wildlife.
Right.
It's really, and if you've never really walked it yourselves, you should, there are several people that know it extremely well. Ann does. And you might want to just,
Rob,
Rob, who is
and.
a wildlife
Ron
walker.
King, welcome.
I surveyed the whole property up for the acquisition. It's an extremely diverse property. And it's big enough that if you're not careful, you can get lost really easily in there.
Looking at the maps. It's
A
pretty-
couple of times I got off the wrong direction. It's kind of neat because I found things out there that I didn't realize, but there's little pockets, little ponds and things. It's a very interesting piece of property.
so just to say, make sure I'm clear on next steps. I'm gonna send this proposal that I've put together to Mark and Ann, and they can distribute to the rest of the group. But for those that might be interested in joining, I would like to get our IMBA contact in a meeting with, possibly just a smaller group of this group, me, Mark, whomever else from Columbia Open Space wants to join, Steve from IMBA, and have that meeting to make sure we're all, on the same page with the proposal, so that Steve, JT, and I can bring it to the state and say, here is what the town wants. Here is what we're looking to plan, and we don't have any idea of where the trails should be, but that's IMBA's job. But I would like to have a meeting with the town just to make sure the priorities of the trail plan are all clear. So if that works for you, it would be great to get it on the books. If not next week, then, after New Year's or something. So Mark and I will coordinate on that.
Sounds good, Honor.
Okay, great. And send me the GIS data that you get from the state, because, one of the, we're doing this at the preserve down in Old Saybrook, but TPL is still sort of managing the mapping, because the trails are so intermittent, and, there's a lot of illicit, similar to this, there's a lot of illicit use until we establish like the designated trails. People are out there just making their own. And so if I can help in the mapping, just, let me know and send me the GIS, and I'll help out the state with that.
Great. Okay,
Got it in there.
All right. Well, I have a 9 o'clock, so nice to see everybody, and email me. If you have any
thank
questions.
you,
All right.
Honor, for tuning in.
Yep. Thanks. Bye.
Bye. Okay. Rob and I would
Yeah.
like to be on there, and at the very least, you know, anybody else coming to him for that.
Good, yeah, it'll be a Zoom meeting, I'm sure.
Yeah, probably.
Probably, so Honor and Steve will set that up and try to get a feel for how IMBA does this, because what you can see is we have to push the state and go, you know, basically do all the work.
It's hard to push something that's not there.
Right, so we have to do the work to get them to bless it, but honest to God, bridges now, I hate building bridges. It takes 6 years to build a bridge.
Yeah.
6 years. Right now, I just found out that Hop River Bridge, not the car bridge, the little footbridge is gonna be, won't be done until 2025. 14 months just for a permit from fisheries. 14 months. Go, okay, this is when you can build. Doesn't the little, don't the fish do the same thing every year at the same time? Like, well, can't you grab the, this is when you can build the water master plan and go here? I don't get it.
That's insane.
It was 2 years, uh-oh. 2 years just to get the historical SHPO, that there's no artifacts on this. Anyway, I did summon.
Just quickly tell me about the RAM acquisition. Did it
Yes.
happen yet?
Right now, we're still being held up. We're waiting for deeds and certificate of something from David's lawyer, and I've given him a deadline of the 20th. And if he gets me to Rich Roberts, everything by the 20th, we can close the week of the 20th or the 27th, 28th. Because I've told everybody we're closed 29th and 30th.
Yep.
So to get this done this year, I need everything by the 20th. So David knows the deadline.
And, okay, and I'm sure David wants this done,
He does, he wants it in this year.
so he can put it
Tax
on
reason.
his taxes. Okay,
All right.
Thank
And when, just in case I don't come right back, all you do is hit this to stop recording.
okay. You got that, you saw that.
I got it.
Okay. Just to fill in the RAM acquisition that we just got that quick update on. It's another little piece of Woods Mountain Pond. It's a jigsaw puzzle that we've been working on for 15 years. And we banged our heads against the wall for 10 years. And then Paul Ramsey brought in the Trust for Public Land. And that was like, wow, everything started to move because Honor could negotiate. They raised money. They, they had so many contacts. And so then things started to click. In that meantime, while we were treading water and not going anywhere, the town acquired one piece in the middle of it, which we call the Mint Brook Preserve. Probably in the future, we'll flip that to the state to be part of the park, because it's right there. It would be the western boundary at this point. There are 2 other properties that we want, 3 actually, that we want very badly, but we're kind of, we've hit a brick wall. For the
These are
time.
currently private properties.
So is it a matter of going to the property owner and expressing, and then it's just a
Right.
negotiation or a donation, or is
How
it?
would you like to donate your land? No, how would you like to buy, to sell it to us? Then think about it. We've got one buyer who wants way too much money for it. And we've
You need
got-
the new owners of Willie Wicks. Go for it.
Thanks, Mark.
Okay.
take care. And another one is three brothers and they can't all agree. You know, one wants to sell, one says maybe, one says no. So we're going around and around, we're on a treadmill with that one.
That's been going on for years.
Oh, 10, 20, I don't know, forever. And then there's one right in the middle that we have to have. And the guy's like 110 and he says, no, deal with my heirs. So waiting for him to die. And then,
Well,
you know, so it's that kind of thing, you know. So you have to take the long view. Probably we'll get his properties, but not this year. So we, and Honor keeps working on them, you know, calls the old guy up once in a while and sweetly asks him one more time. But in the meantime, we are just about to get a piece from the Brian brothers, David and his brother Chris. And that's coming,
So what's the total vision for that then? You said it's currently 400 acres. What would the,
We have just added 400. And we did get a little more, so we've added with the Brian property, it'll be 500. And we're looking to add 500 more in these other three properties. That's the short story, the abbreviated edition. So it's a very ambitious project, but with the Trust for Public Land, it has actually become.
that trust, I'm assuming, can be used to purchase the land that we're looking to acquire? Or is it?
They raise money.
It's a national organization,
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll fill
Helps.
you in
local people.
on more of those details. Okay.
They can't own anything. They can purchase, they can use, if they have to, they will use their funds to purchase something. But it's gotta be with the understanding that they're flipping it like to the state or whatever.
Or to the municipality. But their motto is land for people. So they do a lot of things like in inner cities, they will buy up land and create parks within a city, things like that.
They just worked on securing the tobacco fields where Martin Luther King worked up in Simsbury. They were very instrumental in that. It just closed recently.
Right.
Make that a park.
Nice.
And one of the things you may or may not be aware of is that the townspeople have always given us overwhelming support for what we've done for open space. This town supports open space.
Yeah.
There are exceptions, of course, there always are. But any vote we have ever had, any public vote, it is overwhelmingly endorsed, whatever we were trying to do.
Like 99.9% of the people who show up at a town meeting.
that's mainly when in town meeting, not referendum? Or does any of this ever go to a like a full referendum?
And any land acquisition according to the charter. And did you all get copies of the charter? Here's a copy for you. We have to go to town meeting. If somebody petitions, then we have to take it to referendum. We've not had to
Never done
do
that.
that.
Never had to do that.
One of the selectmen keeps threatening it, but
I think if it's done right, why would anyone have a problem? I mean, if it's for the benefit of the town. And it's all well thought out, and obviously things are, for the most
Well,
part, right? Try to get everything.
that's the beauty of having the Trust for Public Land. and.
She sounds
and
like,
Bob.
Honor sounds like she's really on it.
Oh, she
Oh,
is.
she's very sharp.
Yeah.
They raise the money, they fund the money. There's maybe one state grant for open space that you can apply for. And there's cutthroat competition for it, because it's called the Open Space and Watershed Grant. And it is funded by the CIA, the Community Investment Act. So all of that depends upon, did anybody put any money into the Community Investment Act? And that's like an umbrella fund, and open space is part of it. So often the state will rob it. You know, if they got another project, then they cheat open space. And so Connecticut Forest and Parks and Connecticut Land Conservation Council all have lobbyists that encourage A, to fund the CIA, and B, to not rob it, so that we can fund this open space and watershed grant. So if all your eggs are in that basket, you can really miss out. And the Trust for Public Land has access to nationwide fundraising because it's a national organization. So for instance, if you donate money to the Trust for Public Land, it might go to our project, or it might go to an acquisition to Yellowstone National Park, or it might go to a park in Bridgeport. And you see, because they have a national, but they also have national resources. They have access to grants from Audubon and all kinds of things. They're much broader base.
But they're not it's not like they're a resource of funds for what we're doing. They just temporarily provide the leverage. But one of the things about this Friends of Mono State Park that's important, and it was actually Honor who brought it up, is that this is a way to raise funding, donations that will probably help build these trails, because the state is probably not going to have enough money to build this trail that we're talking about.
You need a lot of money for the bridge.
So we're gonna need grant money, we're gonna need state money, and we're gonna need private donations. And the way to accumulate the donations is through this Friends of. So that's why it has a lot of things to do, but that's one of them.
So that's the update. So, Mount Pond is not our only project. We have our fingers in a few pies. This RAM acquisition, we will get 35 acres more. And it's an important 35 acres. But in this deal, and I won't say it's tit for tat, but the Ram brothers also want to, they're going to donate the marsh that's between the cemetery and senior center across the street and Brookford Village. There's a marsh back in there, in case you didn't know that. And we're going to receive that. And it will be named after their mother, who is still alive and happily residing in Colebrook Village in Hebron. but they want to name it after their mother. And they have been trying to give us this land for years. And we, the Open Space Committee, went and looked at it, said, it's okay. You know, if they want to give it, we'll take it. And the town, and that was our report to the Board of Selectmen. You know, that yes, it would be fun, but we wouldn't pay money for it because but it's a donation. But the Board of Selectmen kind of dropped the ball on it. And the Rams were very upset, so they came back at us and said, push this. So we pushed it. So we're gonna get that.
It's all wetlands that they would donate that piece?
Well, we'll get an access that you don't have to swim on.
Okay.
But if you wanted to put a hiking trail all the way around it, it's not gonna fly.
But there's a great birding spot for the seniors to walk out of.
Well, there's a really nice place if you sit by the dam, but you gotta be a mountain goat to get there, right behind the senior center. So I'm not seeing this as anything, but that will be our project. We'll go out and we'll look at it and we'll get the Conservation Commission involved and.
You know, what was really neat
We'll
was
put a
when
trail on it.
when the log cutting was going on up and down 66 and they cut trees, right? And you could see the dam now from 66.
Can you?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
really cool. So I think that they ought to get the town to go in there and clear the rest of that and just open it up because it's really neat.
Well,
It's a dam that's behind the senior center?
It's just to
yeah,
It's a little
It
bit.
is.
the west,
It doesn't
hold
water.
just to the west of the senior center.
Oh,
So if you're coming down the hill, you look to the left before you get to the entrance.
Yep.
And you'll see the stonework of an old dam.
yeah. It's called Dam Brook, and if you
it's the one that
read,
goes down 87 and connects with Gifford, I
Yes.
believe.
that's the one. And if you read Joan Hill's latest historical publication on industry and 18th century industry in Columbia, she goes through every dam, every mill, the history of it.
What's her name?
And that was a
Hill.
hat factory,
Yeah, the Historical Society.
yeah,
He's written several books, actually.
yeah, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And she also, I don't think she's made a book out of it, but she has extensively researched the history of Wellswood, which is within.
All those-
our
Has she presented before this committee?
She used to
No, she's presented a number of times for the general public.
It's really interesting. If she does it again, you should go. Because
I'm working on her to actually write the book.
when I first moved here 40 years ago, you would hear all these explanations of what happened to the village in Wellswood, malaria, they got wiped out by Indians. I mean, you'd hear all this stuff, crazy stories. And it was simple economics. They couldn't make a living and they left. It was glacial debris. You couldn't farm on it.
It's tough. It's beautiful, but it's tough. I need to do anything besides walk and see pretty things.
Okay,
Does anybody have any other business? No.
okay,
Move we adjourn.
second that.
It will start
All in
recording.
favor? Oh, thank you.
Good to have you back.
That's probably more than I like to do anyway.